Welcome to my first ever Booktube video, my first ever YouTube video. My name is Marianne Guevara and I like reading books and I really like talking about books, and I thought what better way to discuss my thoughts about certain books than to join Booktube. I've been watching Booktube for quite a while and I thought, why don't I give it a go, give it a shot. So yeah, here's my first ever video here on Booktube. And I thought for my first video, I thought it'd be really cool if I talked about certain books that are representative of highlights within my reading journey throughout the years. So I'll be discussing these books today with you, and without further ado, let's get started. So the first book I want to mention is The Scary Stories Treasury. This contains all three of the Scary Stories books, and this one contains the original Stephen Gamble illustrations. It's basically the editions that you need. If you have any other that doesn't have the original Gamble illustrations, it's pretty much why bother. But anyway, I remember in 5th grade, our professor actually reading this to the class. I don't know why he did it, but he did. And I remember just the illustrations being burned into my memory. And I believe it was this book, along with another one called In a Dark, Dark Room, which pretty much kick-started my love for the horror genre. And it also influenced my writing hobby as well. I remember when we were in elementary school, whenever we were given an assignment that involved, writing a short story, mine would always end up being scary. And that would carry on to high school and into college because I took creative writing electives in both high school and in college. And it would always end up, my assignments would always end up being horror. I would always end up writing horror stories. And horror is one of my favorite genres to read, and it is also one of my favorite, it is actually my favorite genre to watch. So it influenced a lot of my physical media tastes, basically. So yeah, I have scary stories to thank for that. So yeah, that's the first one. So the next book I'm going to show you is definitely significant. Really is a hallmark in my reading journey, basically, and me as a reader. And that would have to be Jane Eyre by Charlotte Bronte. Now, during the waning days of my middle school years, I pretty much got into a reading slump. I wasn't reading that much anymore. However, when I was in high school, particularly when I got back home from one of my first days in high school, my mom gifted me a mass market paperback version of Jane Eyre. I didn't ask for it. I don't even think she knew what the plot was. I think she just picked it out randomly while she was in a bookstore, and she gave it to me as a gift. And I gave it a go, and I fell in love. I just fell in love with Jane Eyre. I don't think I ever came across a book that pretty much won me over. And I think it has to do with the fact that I was the right age when I read Jane Eyre. And I really have to thank this book for not only reigniting my love for reading, but also kickstarting my love for reading classics. If you guys don't know, I am a huge classics reader. It's my favorite genre, even though there's debate on whether you can call classics like a specific genre because it's so broad, but I love Jane Eyre. And if you were to ask me what is my favorite classic, I would always say it would have to be Jane Eyre because it just impacted me so much. Really got me into reading classics and really showed me that classics are more than to be admired. You can actually fall in love with them. And Jane Eyre is one of those classics that I feel can appeal to many other people. If you really like stories of character growth, you're gonna like Jane Eyre. If you like, gothic elements, Jane Eyre. If you like romance, then definitely Jane Eyre. So yeah, I have to thank my mom basically for introducing me to Jane Eyre and for pretty much this book getting me into classics. So yeah. So the third book I'm going to show you is Dante Alighieri's The Inferno. This was my favorite book to study back in high school. We had to study this in my 4th year of high school in my lit class, and I really enjoyed it. And not just the reading experience, I really enjoyed the studying. I really enjoyed the analysis, determining the themes and the symbolism. This book, the reason why I'm showing it to you in this video is because this one showed me that enjoyment from a book can go beyond just leisure. there can be joy derived from analysis, basically, analysis of the themes and all the symbols involved. And beforehand, I did read other books for classes like To Kill a Mockingbird, The Iliad, Macbeth. It was Inferno where I really had a good time. I remember we had to write a paper, we had to have an oral presentation, and usually I would find that cumbersome, I would find that annoying or even scary, but not with Inferno. I actually had a good time with Inferno. This is my original copy, the one that I had in school, and I still have my annotations, my pencil notes. And I think this is the only book I had ever annotated in my life, so yeah. Inferno, a good time, despite the name, so yeah. So the next book I'm going to show you is Never Let Me Go by Kazuo Ishiguro. And I had to read this and study this for my first year in college in my lit class. And what Never Let Me Go did was pretty much teach me to appreciate slower novels, more subtle novels. Because beforehand, looking back in elementary and in middle school, I would often be reading mysteries, thrillers, or fantasy, primarily fantasy. Never Let Me Go was very special because it was more of a quiet novel, and I hadn't really encountered a novel like that. And I remember when I finished Never Let Me Go, I was thinking, yeah, that was okay. And then, as time passed on and I allowed the story to sink in, I began to see, wow, this is actually a really great story, and I really love it. I actually love Never Let Me Go. It was a slow punch, basically, a slow, soft, but powerful punch. And yeah, I loved this book. And I love another Kazuo Ishiguro novel, Remains of the Day. So I really owe it to Never Let Me Go for teaching me about slow novels, showing me that, there is a lot of impact in a book that isn't just bombastic or melodramatic. There is, power in the quiet and the subtle. So yeah, Never Let Me Go. So the last book I'm going to show you is The Woman in White by Wilkie Collins. Now, I love The Woman in White by Wilkie Collins. It's one of my favorite classics ever. Although I wouldn't recommend this to first-time classic readers. I would definitely say wait a bit. It's pretty thick. It's a chunky book. I say dip your toes in some classics before getting to this one, but I would highly recommend it. But the main reason why I'm putting this one up is because it's serving as a representative of the Penguin English Library collection in general, the ones designed by Corley Bickford Smith. Now, the reason why I'm showing this is that it's meant to represent my, let's say, journey, the beginning of my journey, basically, as a book collector. Not only a book reader, but a book collector. Now, yeah, I'm definitely a book collector now. It's kind of an addiction, I'm not gonna lie. But yeah, I love collecting beautiful editions of classics. And the Penguin English Libraries started that for me. This was my first ever Penguin English Library book. Beforehand, I didn't particularly care or pay attention to the edition of the book that I was reading, but now I'm thinking, is it a Penguin English Library? Is it a Penguin Black Spine? Is it a red vintage spine? And which something is, I never thought of that before coming across this collection. And this book pretty much catapulted me into the world of beautiful classic editions. So yeah, I have that to thank for it. It pretty much showed that, books, not only can they have really great content, but they can also be beautiful works of art. And as someone who's a mediocre artist, that is something I can really appreciate. So yeah, that's The Woman in White and the Penguin English Library collection. So those were all the books I wanted to discuss. All these 5 here on my first ever Booktube video. And yeah, I wanted to thank you for sticking around and listening to my ramblings. Hopefully I hear more from you. I really like, sharing my thoughts about books, but I also like to discuss with you guys about books as well. And hopefully, I have many more ideas for videos on this channel, and hopefully you can stick around and see for yourself. So once again, thank you for stopping by, and bye!